Rise of Kingdoms is a mobile strategy game that combines real-time strategy, which has been on the shelves for nearly 3 years and is still popular worldwide. You can choose any of the 12 civilizations that have actually existed in history, recruit hundreds of historical generals, train the special soldiers of each civilization, break through to the next era as in history, collect resources, develop technology, and build your dream city. Freely choose and develop your civilization and commanders. There are no definitive rules in Rise of Kingdoms. The Viking civilization has arrived. Ragnar Lodbrok and Bjorn Ironside are leading Viking warriors to rage. Download the game and choose the Vikings and conquer the world. Rise of Kingdoms is free to download and free to play. Click on the link in the description to download Rise of Kingdoms now. You will get awesome in-game props by using the code ROKVikings. Don't forget to also click the second link in the description to enter the contest to win an iPhone 12. Rise of Kingdoms. Get it today. An infamous Nazi treasure remains missing in 2021, an extremely valuable treasure that many have sought out but none have so far found. This Nazi treasure is unusual in that it is not looted art or bullion, stolen by the Germans from conquered countries or persecuted minorities. Rather, it is a treasure created by the Nazis themselves. Some time ago, I tackled the fascinating subject of Heinrich Himmler's real castle Wolfenstein, the mysterious Wewelsburg castle near Paderborn in western Germany. Wewelsburg was the spiritual home of the SS, a mystical center of the SS world, as well as a headquarters for various SS research projects into subjects like Arianism and occultism. Himmler revived paganism in Germany, and the SS was seen by him as an elite corps of Nazi political spiritual soldiers that descended from various medieval traditions and groups, including the Teutonic Knights, in the process creating an alternative history for the organization that was embedded in Germanic myth and history. The SS, like the wider Nazi movement, used many symbols from German and Norse history and adapted them for their own purposes, the most famous being the Sieg runes and the Death's Head. Himmler saw Wewelsburg as a place where the SS would be both honored and educated. Parts of the castle carried names associated with history, myth, and folklore, such as Grail, after the Holy Grail, King Arthur, Aryan, runes, Teutonic order, and German language. The Ahnenerbe Ancestral Heritage Unit displayed objects of particular historical eras and modern National Socialist art in the castle. The exterior of the castle was remodeled to make it appear more castle-like and medieval, and new towers and buildings were added. Adding to the place's mystery, Himmler banned all visits by the public from 1934 onwards and forbade its mention by the press or in books. Meetings of higher SS leaders took place occasionally at the castle, and Himmler created the SS Generals Hall, where the highest 12 SS leaders would meet in a pastiche of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. Himmler took very seriously the objects and imagery associated with his SS, as well as special ornamental daggers and swords that were presented to SS who distinguished themselves. Himmler was always keen to stress the brotherhood of the SS, the unbreakable bonds between its members, and its separateness from the other German armed forces. On the 10th of April 1934, Himmler ordered the creation of the SS Ehrenring, or Honor Ring, a personal gift from the Reichsfuhrer, separated from state honors and medals. It was awarded for personal achievement, devotion to duty, and loyalty to Hitler and National Socialism. As such, it was treated on a par with a holy relic and with the greatest dignity. The ring was derived from the story of the pagan god Thor, who it was said possessed a silver ring upon which people could take oaths. The honor ring was likewise a silver band in the form of oak leaves, the traditional German leaf. A death's head represented how SS should be ready at any time to lay down their lives for the good of the Germanic people. There were also a number of runes around the ring. One Sieg rune, left and right of the skull, both spelled the name of the organization, the SS, and because they were framed by triangles, the power of the sun and of conquering enemies. The swastika in a square was a symbol of the power of the Aryan race. The Hargell Rune within a hexagon represented faith and camaraderie, and the double runes at the rear of the ring were modern creations called Hauszeichen, or signs of salvation of the past. The honor rings were manufactured by the firm of Otto Gar in Munich. Inside they were engraved with the letters S.LB, an abbreviation of Seinen Lieben, or to dear, followed by the recipient's surname, date of award, and Himmler's signature. In the beginning, the ring was awarded to SS officers with membership numbers below 5,000, the organization's old guard. After 1939, officers with over 3 years' service were eligible for the award. Lists were prepared by SS headquarters, and citations were processed in Berlin. If an officer was demoted, suspended, or dismissed from the SS, or if he resigned or retired, the ring had to be returned to the SS Personnel Office. If the officer died in the SS, the ring had to be returned, but the family could keep the citation. If the officer was killed in action, his unit had to make efforts to retrieve the ring from his body. So where did the rings go after they were returned? Wewelsburg. Himmler created a shrine to the holders of the Death's Head ring at the castle, as each ring was in effect the dead officer's memorial. So how many rings were presented? Manufacturing and presentation of the rings ended in 1944, and in the 10 years since the ring's creation, some 14,500 were awarded. The SS security police, the Sicherheitsdienst, the SD, kept records that revealed that as of the 1st of January 1945, 64% had been returned to Wewelsburg following the deaths of the holders, 10% had been lost in combat, and 26% were still being worn or had in fact disappeared. So at war's end, about 3,500 rings were in circulation, many being captured by Allied forces or thrown away by the recipients. Roughly 9,280 honor rings were at Wewelsburg Castle at the end of the war. By the 30th of March 1945, the US 3rd Armored Division was rapidly approaching Paderborn, the closest big city to Wewelsburg. There would be no last stand at the castle. Instead, SS Obergruppenführer Siegfried Taubert, the castle commandant, abandoned his post, driving away with his men, leaving the building intact but unguarded. Taubert and his staff fled to Schleswig-Holstein, parts of which would remain under the control of a new Nazi government established by Hitler's successor, Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, until late May 1945. When Taubert fled, Himmler was headquartered at Breslau. He ordered one of his trusted adjutants, SS Sturmbannführer or Major Heinz Macher, to take 15 men from Himmler's Escort Battalion, who had combat engineer experience, to go to the castle and destroy it, to prevent it falling intact into American hands. Macher and his command arrived at the castle on the 31st of March 1945. Setting some charges, the southeast tower was blown up and some fire set in other parts, but little real damage was done to the structure apart from internal fire damage, as Macher lacked the explosives, manpower, and importantly the time. There was one more important task that Macher was specifically ordered by Himmler to complete. The story goes that Macher was told to get rid of the honor rings, but they represented the deaths of comrades in battle and would not simply be destroyed. Though many SS officers did not share Himmler's interest in folklore and Germanic mythology, the rings nevertheless represented something precious to the SS and would be treated with dignity. No records exist concerning the rings being melted down or thrown into a river or any other such disposal. Instead, Macher and his men apparently placed the box of rings, which must have been an ornate chest of some description taken from the shrine, and placed it inside a small cave or rock fissure on a hill near to the castle, and the entrance was sealed by using explosives. Blast sealed is the term most often used. But there is one problem with the accepted story. Macher had only a limited amount of time to destroy the castle, and he made a very poor job of it. He noted that he had insufficient explosives to do the job, even having to use jerry-rigged telemines to try and cause more damage. In the end, a fire was begun, as well as some demolition, and Marker ordered the local fire brigade not to intervene, hoping to gut the structure. It stands to reason that blast sealing a hefty metal box into a cave or similar would have required explosives Marker may not have had. It would also have required a lengthy detour into the mountains, again using up valuable time Marker couldn't have with the Americans literally at the door. This is conjecture on my part, but I think that the blast sealing story was created in order to dissuade people from searching for the rings. I think we can also rule out the following possible scenarios: that Marker ordered them buried somewhere within the lower portion of the castle, tipped down a well, or buried in the ground somewhere near the castle. Nothing has ever been found, and it has been extensively searched. I think it more likely that the chest of rings was placed in a vehicle and taken with Marker's column when they left. What is certain is that Marker and his men did not do a very complete job of gathering up the rings, because when US forces from the 3rd Armoured Division reached the smouldering castle on the 2nd of April 1945, a Captain Black, an intelligence officer, found a packet containing 200 honour rings in one of the offices and distributed them to his men as souvenirs. Clearly, Major Marker had been operating under extreme time constraints if such a number of rings were missed or abandoned. There is one piece of evidence suggesting that I'm right, that the honour rings were removed from the castle by Marker and his men and not buried or concealed nearby. The Chiemsee Cauldron. In 2001, divers discovered what was thought to be a priceless ancient Celtic treasure in the Chiemsee, an alpine lake in Bavaria. However, further examination revealed that the 10-kilogram or 23-pound solid gold vessel was of 20th century manufacture. In fact, it had been made by Otto Gar, the Munich jeweller responsible for the Death's Head rings. The cauldron was kept at Wewelsburg Castle and used in various ceremonies and as a decorative piece. It was still at the castle when Marker arrived. So why did Marker take the cauldron with him but seal the rings into a cave? Why not seal up the cauldron with the rings and other important Nazi items? It doesn't make sense unless Marker took the rings with him along with the cauldron and other items. And how did the cauldron end up in southern Germany in a lake? According to several sources, the cauldron ended up in the possession of a unit called the 38th SS Grenadier Division Nibelungen, named for the mythical race of Scandinavian dwarfs who were the owners of a hoard of gold and magic treasure. One of the constituent elements of the division was the Reichsfuhrer SS Escort Battalion, an elite SS unit attached to Himmler's headquarters to protect him. It's not too much of a stretch to hypothesize that Marker, on Himmler's orders, gave the Wewelsburg treasures to Himmler's bodyguard unit that ended up in southern Germany at the end of the war and dumped the gold cauldron into the Chiemsee. If I were to look for the 9,000-plus missing Death's Head rings, I'd look in the depths of the Chiemsee, as it makes logical sense based on what we know of the men and the units involved. The cave story, which originated with the SS, was just that, a story, a diversion. It was to prevent the real location of the rings and maybe other treasures from becoming known after the war. So, how much are the SS honor rings worth today? The genuine articles sell for between $3,000 and $5,000 each, meaning that the hoard of missing rings is worth somewhere between $28 and $47 million today. The Chiemsee is a very big place, and there are plenty of places still left to be explored in its depths. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.